Ooh, what's happening, man? Alright, so earlier I was talking about HAARP, right? HAARP, HAARP. Um, Sometimes I talk really fast, because that's how fast, that's really not how fast, but my brain's going faster than that. And a lot of the time I have trouble, like, not keeping up with it in my brain, obviously, but keeping up with it if I'm trying to, like, convey the shit um, to another person, especially if I'm having to, like, stop and make sure that I'm not just assuming, um, familiarity with a topic or a concept. So, um, but I was watching some stuff while I was hitting up a smoothie and a smoothie. Well, I was hitting up a smoothie, and it sparked some more um, thoughts on just how multifaceted HAARP's effects can be, and how it is seemingly um, like an omniweapon, like and not just a weapon, a tool to be used um, as a weapon at the same time as a tool. Um, there are so many things that this technology and the vast system, the infrastructure, the network that they just built 3 years ago, or finished, or I won't even say finished because I'm sure they're still putting more shit up, but, unveiled um, in 2020, it can do so many things that it affects, virtually, not literally, but virtually every aspect of, you know, potential existence in this shared reality that, people are finding ways to argue about the mechanics of for some reason. Um, and I guess because I said that that's one thing that I want to get into is like I see a lot of people, it's the same thing, contradicting themselves and saying certain things in a almost guru type of sense, and they're just giving their perspective on the best way to make it through this, the best way to exist, to live, to be happy, to be content, to ascend or whatever the fuck. That's a real thing. Just, it frustrates me how this all comes off sometimes from you know, I don't want to call them influencers. Sometimes they are influencers, though. For instance, when I keep hearing the narrative that, and let me cook for a minute because it's gonna sound negative for a minute. Surprise, surprise. But I keep hearing this negative or this narrative that if you are quote negative on your outlook on existence, on this this life and the contents of it, the events of it, that you're causing the negativity in your own life. And to clarify that, what they follow up with is if you view things, if you view this existence as positivity and you just keep saying positive things to yourself, then you will attract those positive things. And I wanna clarify by saying I I believe in both of those concepts. I believe in those concepts. My issue with it is that the way that it's being conveyed to people who maybe don't understand what they're saying is it's conveying it to them in a way that could make them believe or think that what that means is because you're so negative, human trafficking happens, or because you're so negative, you know, you're a wage slave. Because you're so negative, you're, people that look like you, Aboriginal people, are the most hated, uh, you know, uh, pigment of people on the planet because you're so negative. Um, General things tend to seem very unfair or inverted in the way that they work, the mechanics of them. And while, like I said, I do agree that what you put out very much affects what is magnetized to you, what attracts to you. The way that's being put out, the way that that's being conveyed, especially to people that can't, you know, that can't make sense and reconstruct those statements to make sense, rationally, and logically. It's misleading. It's misleading, and it's not helpful. Then once it hits the realm of misleading, it's no longer helpful. You're just a pastor, right? You're a pastor. You're negging them. You're negging people. You're telling them that they just haven't got it right yet. And, once they get it right, everything's going to be okay. And the fact of the matter is, things will potentially be better. Things that they may not even perceive to be within their physical control will be better. But the reality is, to insinuate that a person's disposition somehow can affect things that are outside of their bubble, that their disposition can change that, is disingenuous. And I always try to think of what the other person would say in a debate, right? And so, in my mind, to that, they would say, oh, well, if they did have a more positive disposition and they weren't being human, trafficked, or their kid wasn't being abused, mentally or physically by somebody, then would it exist to them? Yes, nigga, yes, it would. It would still exist. That would still be a thing that happens. They would still hear about it sometimes. Like, there. I heard somebody say a while ago that the closer we got to this, I think it was Rashad Jamal, the closer we got to these events, not a single event, but these events, people would start kind of losing it. And while I took that as meaning, like, not a specific thing, but more literal sense of what you might imagine that would look like. People in the streets doing crazy shit. People, fucking each other up for dumb shit. Like, it also means this stuff. This shit that we're starting to see. And some of it's algorithms, so it can skew your idea of reality. I'm not, when I say everybody, I'm obviously kind of keeping it, local. I'm talking about the family. I'm talking about the people that are running in these circles that are talking about similar things, whether it be socio-political or metaphysical or esoteric or occult or alchemic or Hellenistic, whatever, religious, whatever. It seems like, and it's a thin line, but it seems like these are the beginnings of that. Like, if you can't hear how that sounds when you say it, to me, something's off about that. Now, I'm not going to say that that person is necessarily crazy, but if you keep saying, well, hey, you control your reality, and you mean that literally, something is off about you. Because, yes, you control your decisions, you control the people that you allow yourself to be around, you control, you know, many things, many aspects about your experience in this place. But at the same time as that, if you can't if you can't admit and concede that that is not absolute, that's not an absolute fact. You don't control your entire reality. There are many things that you have very little, if any, control over. And the people that are telling you that are living the same existence as you. Whether they're rich or not, there are still people that could come and take them to a place and hold them there. There are still situations that could take one disposition and turn it into a very different disposition. Like, there are very disingenuous things being said and taught and pushed to people. And while I don't think a lot of those people mean any harm, I think some people do mean some harm, and I think that they're being compensated for that harm. But I also think that even if you don't know that you're doing that, it's still irresponsible. Like, that's still manipulative. You're still manipulating people in a direction that could, a couple steps down the line, lead them to go the opposite direction that it sounds like you're trying to take them in. Like, just for instance, what's to say that a person that hears that repeatedly is like, oh, so then all these things that are wrong, that I view to be wrong with my life, they're all my fault. And no matter how hard I try, I'm not making it change. Supposedly I have all the power, so all these negative things, it doesn't even have to be stuff in their life. There are people that are empaths that don't know everything, so when they hear stuff like that, they take it in. And so there's the potential now for that empath to say, all this stuff I see happening, in the world, it hurts me. It hurts me. Whether it be physically or emotionally or spiritually or mentally. And these people keep telling me that it's in an indirect way, or you could call that a direct way. It's my fault. And I'm not strong enough to change it, apparently, because it's still happening. You see how quick that can spiral a person out? And I think that's when those same people, those same influencers and teachers and people that are really just trying to get a following, they're trying to get you to buy something or pay for something or believe something, because that's also currency. That's when they'll throw their hands up like, hey, that's an adult, man. That's not my fault. And they're right. That's true. But you still did that. And also, kids are very intelligent. They're getting smarter and smarter, so they're interested in this shit. I just had a long build with a 16-year-old kid who's smarter than most of the adults that I come into contact with on a day-to-day basis. It's shit like that really gets up under me. And it's not to say that I or anyone knows exactly how to do this, or to get out of this, or to make it through this experience, this test, whatever the fuck this is. But again, I've I've repositioned my outlook to become the type of person that doesn't try to know everything or prove things, but to more so know when to call something out that's not right, or to notice something that is off or doesn't make sense, because I'm at least confident enough in my faculties and my capabilities to be able to identify the problem and then try to work it out and figure it out. So I don't have to be right, but it definitely helps me to know what's wrong and to know what is not making sense, what's not adding up. And I keep seeing, and I'm not trying to tell people to stop posting or saying positive shit to each other. I am a pessimist, but a classical pessimist, like a traditional pessimist. I'm not a negative person. I'm a person that is trying to be realistic and logical instead of falling back on programmed and indoctrinated religious style thinking and practices. And by religious style, I don't just mean actual religion, because that same concept that I'm talking about right now, where you start saying to yourself, or where you allow other people to influence you to start saying to yourself, okay, so I'm actually the one that's causing all this negativity, not just within my own existence, but in the world that I see, because they're not clarifying that. So if I just find a way to not be so weak, and I find a way to transmute this into straight positivity, then I can fix all this. And yeah, there are people that are not gonna say that. They're gonna know how to, you know, make sense of the potentially misleading words, but there are just as many, I think more people who will think some shit like that. And this to me that is has the potential to be a proverbial ticking time bomb, not a literal ticking time bomb, but like, that could have been a soldier in the family. That could have been somebody who's ready for whatever. Strong-minded, strong-willed, logical. Not to say that they don't believe in things that have been lost to us or taken from us, or withheld from us, or the occult teachings or any of that stuff. Just able to balance those things, and to know when they hear cult speak being ran on them, because you don't have to be you don't have to intend on trying to build a cult to start doing it. You don't have to intend on speaking like a cult leader to speak like one, or to act like one, especially not right now. There's almost, like I said before, there's like this archetype. There are some people that are so charismatic and so successful in the way that they convey their message, that whether people mean to or not, they pick up those people's mannerisms and habits and tactics and strategies. I done seen a couple Rashad Jamals since this nigga had the situation pop off. You know, Free that nigga, man. This shit is, unless there's some real, unless there's some actual real evidence and not conjecture, free that nigga, man. But I didn't see more than a couple Rashad Jamals, um, and young pharaohs and spiritual soul. I didn't see. I mean, And it's not to say that that's irregular. Like when niggas are cool, other niggas want to be like them. That's not new, but this is a very specific situation. That this kind of comes with a bit of responsibility. It's one thing to study this shit and look into it and embody it or whatever, but then when you start trying to influence other people, like that comes with responsibility. And it's not to say that you got to be perfect at it, because perfect don't fucking exist. The only perfect is, you know, the unified, the oneness that we all come from. And even then, I don't know that to be perfect, because for all I know, this might not be a test. This could be what was intended, and it just is a flop, a fuck up. I ain't mad at it, you know? Creation takes failure sometimes, and who knows what the fuck this is. We've been told a bunch of shit, but we don't know any of that shit to be true. Um, yeah, man, I keep hearing it. You're the one causing all this negativity. If you keep thinking like that, you're going to keep attracting it. You're going to keep seeing it. And I legit, I can't think of a single instance where the person worded it in a way that didn't make it that open to interpretation. If someone clarified, like, within reason, they have to say is within reason, and then maybe give a little context to what within reason means, that would change up the whole mode, bro. That would change up the whole, like, that would change up the whole mode of what it sounds like they're trying to say. But instead, it gets left so vague and yet so, specific, that it just sucks. Like, that's not the way to say that, in my opinion. It's not the way to say that. And to me, if you view that as not being that big of a deal, or that's the best way to say that, then you're looking at it like you, from your perspective, not from everybody's perspective. And yeah, there are people that, it might sound harsh, but there are people that don't matter. When if you were to know how all this is going to play out, there are people who potentially we're always going to suck, or we're always going to, fall, or we're always going to betray us all, or whatever the fuck you want to look at it as. But to act like you know who those specifics are right now is lame, you know? And it's almost like those of us that are on this, very wide path of trying to attain this gnosis, and trying to make sense of this, and reach that certain level of consciousness, whatever you want to call it, Christ consciousness, oneness, wholeness, whatever. Like, it seems like a lot of it is being successfully sidetracked, successfully manipulated, information getting manipulated, movements, as always, getting manipulated, the sharing of information, knowledge, and gnosis getting manipulated. Like, and we can combat these things, but it's like we're not even really trying that hard, you know. And then if a nigga like me says some shit like that, then one of these goofy ass niggas come out talking about this nigga's being too negative, bro. Don't focus on what he's saying. Just because you don't focus on it doesn't make it go away. That's not how this works. It's never worked like that. That is religious thinking. That's the same thing as fucking praying. That is the same thing as praying. You pretending that a thing is not an issue or a possibility or a probability is, you know, unilateral, parallel to praying and having faith. Because you're without saying it, you're essentially saying, if I just keep this good faith, if I just keep this positive perspective and aspect, and I don't think about negative shit, and it's all love, and I'm, going toward the light, then you're ignoring a large section of reality as you know it, as we know it. Because even people that claim that their lives are super good and everything is good and blah blah blah, they live here too. So the shit that I know about doesn't happen in your reality, because if that's what you think or how you feel, then I am not the one that needs to be considering whether or not I have a grip on reality. If you just think that those things are not happening in your reality, but we are talking to each other, meaning we're on the same reality, I'm not the one that needs to be concerned. And I mean, there's very real shit to consider. Like, going back to the harp shit, man, like, I thought of another example because I was listening to David Lynch explaining transcendental meditation, and how there are the steps that one climbs or descends, whichever. It's really descending, that one descends to get to the oneness, the level of consciousness that all of this comes from, Christ consciousness, God consciousness. And then the person in the video who had found the clip was kind of just loosely talking about how, as we all know, many people who try to meditate have a lot of issue with it. And the same thing as with channeling and astral projecting. A lot of people like to lie. They like, and I think it's because either a sense of belonging to something or attention. It sounds cool when you talk about all these things that you're capable of, and you don't really have to work too hard to know the buzzwords and the things that help you to sound like you know what you're talking about, because it's all over the place. Once again, it's a system that feeds itself, that helps itself. So the people that maybe don't know too much about it, or did it once or twice, or haven't done it at all, they can sound like they know what they're talking about. But in reality, many, many people have issues with meditation, or they believe they're reaching a level of meditation that is unintentionally misrepresented in their mind, in their perspective. Because if you hear a monk or someone who is just stacked up a certain way, describe what their meditation is like, niggas are not getting to that on a consistent basis. Again, people will say they are, and that's unfortunate. I think that there's so much there's so much lying, not only to us as a family, but there's so much lying to yourself happening right now, because that's yet another thing that's been made very, very normalized. Lying to the self to feel better, to feel fuzzier, to get through the day-to-day. And I get it, I definitely get it, I'm not shitting on it. It's just, that's something we gotta fucking fix. That's yet another thing we need to fix. But the reason that that's important is because that level of meditation is not I won't call it a carrot on a stick. It's it's definitely something to strive for, but time doesn't exist. So you don't need to like, oh, there's no time. I got to get there right now. But what is an issue is why are people having, if we are the original being, if we are made in creator's image, then why is it so hard to reach that level of meditation? Does anybody ask themselves that, or do they just try to figure out a way to make it seem like they are doing it? Because the reality is, there are so many things that are being thrust upon you to keep you from reaching that, and you don't even want to see it, or you don't realize it. And yeah, I've talked about some of them before. There's actually, the food, the water, the air, all the stuff I've talked about before. But like I said, I started off earlier today talking about HAARP. That is also keeping you from being able to do that on multiple levels. On a cellular level, it's fucking with you. On, on a mental level, because of the. I need to get into that next thing I was about to say. For right now, I'm just gonna reference it as things that you're hearing that you don't know you're hearing. That's keeping, because even though you're not hearing it, you're hearing it. You understand what I mean? You're not hearing it, but you're hearing it. And meditation, you need to be quiet. Not just quiet, you need to be quiet. So if something is distracting you, not here, but here, you're not quiet. So again, HAARP is, and I know that you've seen depictions of crazy Trumpers and all that old dumb shit that y'all get indoctrinated into, picking a side on. You've seen them say some crazy shit, or some not very well informed shit, or whatever. But the reality is usually there, even if it's just on the surface. If they push a clip or make something viral, there's many times at least some truth in the base of it, right? So if you not seeing it too much now, but back then I remember seeing a lot of times, usually a person on the MAGA side, or whatever you want to call it, the QAnon side, whatever, talking about HAARP, or talking about chemtrails, and all these very, very real concepts that are happening, that have been confirmed. They're not hiding it. They publish their findings. They publish their research. They publish articles talking about the upcoming new projects. Like, it's not that it's a conspiracy, and it's not that it's not happening. It's that they have done such a good job of making the back of your brain think for the front of your brain. So when you hear something like that, a lot of people, even if they consider themselves to be in this shit, that sounds fucking crazy. So before you even give the shit a chance, you've already written it off, and you're on to the next thought. But if you go back to reality and pay attention to what is actually happening, this shit is really affecting you on every level. And to go back to what I referenced earlier, so another aspect, and I'm saying another because, like I said, I did a live earlier today, and talked about some of the aspects of HAARP that are used and important. pertinent to everybody, not just to people that are interested or care about it like me. Um, another use, another of the many uses of HAARP technology is responsible for. Um, I gotta be careful when I say this, some of this shit, because it's not that I'm scared of being censored or demonetized or none of the other shit that people give a fuck about. It's sensitive. People have lost family members. People have lost kids. People have gone to jail or prison for long periods of time. You know, been declared crazy. All kinds of shit over this. Um, People that go into public places and hurt people, right? And I think that's actually a better description of it anyway, because it doesn't always have to be don't always have to be that. Sometimes it's a knife. Sometimes it's no weapon. It's just them. Or sometimes it's not just one person. There's a channel that I am a supporter of. Look out for Charlie, and it's spelled weird. If I remember, I'll put it in the description when this is over. But just remember, it's spelled regular, no spaces. Instead of for, fa. Look out for Charlie. F-A. Look out for Charlie. This dude is very well trained. I don't know if it's self-trained, like self-taught, or if he was, he has a degree or something in audio engineering. But this dude has many videos going back years talking about the topic of ELF, weaponry. And that gets into a whole lot of stuff, because that just means extremely low frequency. So we've already talked about how you can do a lot of shit with that, not just, what I'm about to talk about. But he has this device called a SWAT rat. SWAT rat, right? And he uses this to record an extremely wide range of frequencies. So he can take this SWAT rat and he can sit it in, doesn't matter where, a park, an inhabited house, an uninhabited house. He can take it and sit it anywhere and let it record and take it back to his setup, and he can show you that we are being bombarded 24/7 with not just ELF frequencies, but actual recorded phrases, constant. And he has videos of him, taking a clip of audio from the SWAT rat and isolating and bringing forward phrases, random phrases that you're hearing if you're in that vicinity. And if you think about, for instance, the HAARP array, the array of many towers, or whatever you want to call them, it's everywhere. And there's nothing that says that it couldn't have been happening when there were just radio towers, because it's just frequency. It's not like it's new technology. It's actually extremely old technology. So it's it's so creepy, because not only the obvious, to think, and I mean literally 24/7, there are sound clips being broadcast. It's like a dog whistle. It's like a dog whistle. Someone can stand right next to you, blow a dog whistle, you don't hear shit. Your dog is freaking the fuck out because it's on a specific frequency, right? This is a different frequency. So again, you don't hear it, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. And this works on a subconscious level. So when you think about the many, many instances of public harmings or not public harmings, this covers anything. There is a good possibility that this is responsible for that. And to take it some more steps, let's take it some more steps. He has referenced the fact that there's a specific book, I forgot what the acronym for it is, but it's essentially a book that goes over all of the, I think it's maybe just mental health, declared mental health stuff, right? Many of the things that we are familiar with today were not a thing until this technology was launched. So even if, say, schizophrenia was a thing before this, you already know how I am. Does that mean that the technology wasn't in existence or being used yet? Because history is fake. Your perception of who's here and who's doing shit is off. You know, whether you want to call those beings aliens, archons, it don't fucking matter. Technology is much older than you think it is. A lot of the stuff that we have here in the United States was not built in the times that you were told. It was found. It was found. So if this is the case, speaking on an architectural, level, like just old Tartarian style buildings like the state building in your city or government facilities, the Lincoln Memorial, shit like that. Like, those were found. They weren't built. So if those were found, then it stands to good reason that technologies were also found. Do they tell you everything they do? Do they tell you everything they find? Fuck no. Most of the time they don't tell you shit. So for all we know, mental illness, mental disease may not even be even anywhere close to what we think it is. It may not even, I don't want to say exist, because a lot of these, experiences are very real to people. I have my own shit, anxiety is very real and blah, 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 blah. But is it real if you start to factor in the fact that you might be getting lasered? You feel what I'm saying? You might be getting lasered either with the broad frequency that just changes your mood, like I spoke about in the last live, or if you are a specific type of brain that is susceptible to these phrases that are just floating around in the air 24/7. It's not directed just at you specifically. It's just always there. And so it's almost like fishing. You're just tossing out little negative phrases, and it's always negative phrases. It's either directly negative or it's a very ominous, like, middle of the road statement where you could take it as negative. It's just like fishing, just tossing or throwing darts at a dartboard. Chunk of darts, just toss it, see what sticks. The weight of these things, and I'll call them findings because for me they're findings, and I'm sharing them with my colleagues, with my community, with my family. The weight of these findings, I don't think y'all take it seriously or understand how heavy it is. These things that I'm talking about don't just affect what it sounds like I'm talking about, nigga. Like, these things affect everything. And I'm having such a hard time getting people to really like, oh shit, this what the fuck? Nobody, not really many people are doing that, you know? And it's more so that I don't see more people talking about it. I don't need it to be me that makes people have the epiphanies. I don't give a fuck about that. It is creepy that I see certain channels like start talking about shit after I talk about shit. Who gives a fuck? Get it out there. If it's not gonna be me, let it be you. As long as you ain't no bitch. Like if you're trying to make a bunch of money off of it, I'm probably gonna fucking pull up on you about that. But if you're just trying to get the gnosis out there and wake up our family, then I don't care, man. That's what's important to me is that it reaches my family, that it reaches y'all. And the weight of these things is immeasurable. And who is responsible is ineffable. And I don't think that shit is reaching many people, even the ones that come across it. I'm not saying I'm reaching a lot of people on a physical sense, because obviously this is fucking war. Why would they want my shit to get out there like that? I'm talking about some real ass shit, nigga. Like, I understand that. I know the laws of war. I know, you know, The Art of War is a good ass book, and it is very, it'll never not be, you know, relevant. So I get that I'm not reaching a lot of people, but at the same time, the people that I do reach, I have conversations with some of y'all, and y'all be pissing me the fuck off. It's like you don't get what I'm saying. Like, you don't understand how heavy this shit is. And I think, hopefully this doesn't sidetrack me, but I think everybody that's in these lanes, every once in a while you're like, nigga, am I, like, is this shit real? Because it's, for one, it's horrifying, you know? You can try to push all that love and light, everything's okay, kumbaya shit if you want to, nigga. This shit is creepy as fuck. This is horrifying. So every once in a while, it's like, is this shit real, bro? Like, but you have to be able to ground yourself by remembering and reminding yourself of the contextual evidence. Are there not towers? Is there not an array of towers that were built out way faster than any project you've ever seen in your motherfucking life? 1 year, 2020, may not even been a whole year. Matter of fact, it started in what, like March? Yeah, because it was around a specific homie's birthday. So around March, that's not even a full year, right? 1 year it took them to get a whole array, a vast array of very, very large towers, and then connecting that infrastructure. Like, there's always contextual things that either support or shut down the thing. And I will say it's usually not as much as one would want, but if you know how to piece together, if you know how to piece together the little bit you can confirm, then you'll have a good idea of your answer most of the time, in my opinion, in my experience. So, at the very least, there's too many, for me, sometimes it's even just this. There are too many questions and too much weird shit Why all of a sudden did these niggas start going out in public and just mobbing? Why did that happen? Why did that start? Why is there so much mental illness? People can give all these excuses talking about poison and in the food and medications and fluoridation in the water and all that shit. But if you start to look into this, a lot of those things are tools that help that. By themselves, they wouldn't be this successful in creating all that, but they damn sure will help it. They'll put you in the right space for it. So anyway, sometimes, I mean, it really does get to a point where it's like, and more times than I am even making it sound like. A lot of the time I find some shit out and I'm like, what the fuck? This can't be real, bruh. And it is. Just keeps being real. It keeps being real. So like, I just I'm not trying to stay focused on one issue, but this is a big one. It's a very, very big one. It is potentially, and my thing is, as far as the idea of this being a controlled experience, and the many follow-up questions that come after that, this is a really, really big factor in that. The fact that this same technology, this same array and infrastructure can affect your weather, it can affect tectonic plates and create earthquakes, it can cause volcanic eruptions, it can ruin your food, it can cause tsunamis, it can ruin your water, it can cause a blizzard, it can manipulate the cells within your body, it can boil the water in your body. Like, it just keeps going and going and going and going. This is a limitless, this is virtually a limitless tool and weapon. And the weight of that is heavy, but nigga, that's where we at. You can either run from that shit and get fucked up, or you can face it together with other people who are ready to face it, and we can step into this God power that niggas keep talking about, because a lot of y'all seem like you're really just running from reality. You so busy trying to figure out if you're a Ra or a Thoth, if you're Nyarlathotep or Zeus, if you're, an elder of the Anunnaki or a Babylonian deity, that you're not paying attention to the shit that is happening now. It don't matter what the fuck you call yourself if your blood is frozen very rapidly by low frequencies. Like, this, I mean, smaller versions of this technology has been getting used for longer than we even know. That same video of the Art Bell show, whatever his show was called, from 1995, right? The doctor that wrote that book, I forgot the name of the book, fuck. He was talking about how scaled down, smaller, meaning smaller, versions of this technology was used in Vietnam. They used it to coerce POWs into giving up information. They subdued them and made them agreeable, and they just gave information up. Usually for some shit like that, you might need some, sodium pentothal or whatever you call it. There's also that plant, that fucking horrifying plant from South America that basically just turns you into a dummy. That shit is scary. I forgot what it's called. Is it called Scopa? I can't remember what it's called, but there's a plant that it's like a berry, I think, or a seed, and the trees are just everywhere there. But people don't fuck with it unless they know about it. You grind it up, turn it into a dust, you walk up on a nigga, blow it in their face, and you say, take me to an ATM. Okay. They take you to an ATM. Empty your bank account and give it to me. Okay. Give me your wallet. Okay. Like, it just makes you do whatever the fuck the person says. Anyway, horrifying drug. But the applications of this, just keep on spawning in my head. Like, and this is just off of my very, very, like, novice, not at all studied knowledge of frequencies. Like, think about the niggas that really know some shit about frequencies. They're just sitting, they have been just sitting in offices and laboratories for decades, thinking of the many different ways that they can use ELF and LF against you and for them. And, you know, how long has that been happening? How long has that been getting used? Like, people look at me weird when I start asking some of these questions, because I start off with, like, how long has this been happening? How long has this been getting used? But my brain goes to other shit, like, nigga, is this what makes weather? Nigga, is this what makes weather? Is this what makes freezing temperatures? Like, you think because you've experienced things and you have a name to attach to it or a concept to attach to it that you know that thing. But if you're real with yourself, you don't know that. You don't know that. You just know what you know. Does that make it absolute? Do you know everything? Have you been able to confirm without a doubt anything that's not your experience? And even the fact of it is, your experience is not absolute. It doesn't mean that it's not a real experience. It doesn't mean that it's not a good indicator of what things may be. But in the same breath, it is not at all a good indicator of the truth or of fact. I've already, demonstrated how easy it is to manipulate reality just off of talking about one tool. And I mean, I didn't just talk about that one tool, that drug, Scopo. That's your reality. Someone can warp your reality just with that. So I mean, the fact of it is to grow up in this specific society, in this specific structure, I think we all need to start realizing that, and not just realizing because you already realize it. Even the people that don't like shit like this, content like this, or whatever the fuck you want to call this, information, gnosis, knowledge, you realize this. You know you've been lied to a whole fuckload. And I'm not just talking about governmental or political shit, just in general. Your parents told you that a fat nigga in a red suit was coming to your house and leaving you cool shit. For years, they told you that. You've been lied to a whole bunch. And so, the need for comfort makes you search desperately for another foothold And by that, I mean, once you realize you've been lied to about something significant, the very, very natural and understandable response to that is to look for something that makes sense to grasp onto. That doesn't mean that that's real either. I'll be back.